The vaccine is changing our lives by giving us a accelerated movement to safety. Safety is building herd immunity. Once we get immunized at a large enough number, the pandemic is done. We all should be excited because then we rapidly move ourselves to what we've been talking about, herd immunity, and to obtain it at the quickest means possible saves the most lives. Go Vax. Let's end.
Good evening. My name is Mike Haney. Welcome to 60 Minutes in Black USA. I hope everyone has had a great holiday season and Happy New Year's to you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today is a very special show to kick the year off. You know, we're going to be talking about COVID-19, Omicron, and everything around it, all the different variants, and how we can keep yourself safe. So while I'm running my mouth for a few minutes, until we bring Dr. Zollicoffer on, who is our special guest, go get your friends, go tell your family, grab your children. Everyone needs to understand and hear what's going on with COVID-19, the real deal, and how to stay safe and how to stay alive. So let's talk about, this show. And I got to tell you, it's been an interesting week. We did the promotions as we did usually do on this show a few days ago, and it was astounding from around the country the reactions that we received. Mike and I were talking yesterday in our pre-show meeting about the fact that, it had to be at least 10 times that we were called the word nigger during the course of people's feedback around the show. And I got to tell you, it really hit me. And I'm one of these people that don't believe in using the word N, the N word, because until we understand the significance of what it is we're saying, then maybe at some point we'll go and refrain from saying it. So I use the full breadth of the word because every time I say it, it hits me and it hurts. But it was really interesting, the people, when they understood Dr. Zollicoffer and we were doing this show. But moreover, I think the issue is Black USA News. I'm not sure what the problem was with describing it as Black USA News, but the information we have today is pertainable to everyone. So let's go ahead and get started because we don't have a lot of time and we have a lot of information to share. And let's bring Dr. Zollicoffer into the stream. Doctor, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, my friend.
It is so good to see you, man. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. You are a world renowned pediatrician, and you have been practicing medicine for 35 years, right?
You got it. Right here in the heart of
And
Baltimore.
absolutely, man. I want to establish the credibility, because you're not Dr. Fauci, you're not Leanna Wen, the people that we usually see on MSNBC or CNN, but you are a COVID-19 expert,
No
having been
question.
described, and you're on the ground doing the work. So where'd you go to school, Dr. Zollicoffer?
Well, went to med school at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Of course, did undergrad at UMBC, right here in the outskirts suburbs of Baltimore, and then came back to Baltimore and did my residency, and been practicing in private practice, solo practice for the last 35 years.
Now, you followed in the footsteps of your father, who also went to the University of North Carolina, I believe. I read somewhere where he was the fourth
That's right.
Black to attend medical school at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Yep, I was the first second generation African American to come back to the University of North Carolina. So we have some of those distinctions there, and we still have lectureships to this day that named after my dad, and fellowships and other things that I give out to students to get out in the community and work and uphold some of the ideals that he did during his days and life here in Baltimore. So yes, those are the things we've done and come through from those standpoints. Dad was a incredible person, the youngest person to go to North Carolina A&T, went to North Carolina A&T at 13 years of age, finished at 17 years of age. And the most curious thing about his career is he sat and waited 10 years of his life in order to enter the University of North Carolina, refused to go to any minority medical school, wanted to be a part in a Tar Heel like everybody else, but was denied because of his skin color. But he would never let that be something that defeated him. He patiently waited until somebody got the powers together and changed that ignorance.
Wow, man. Well, I appreciate that, Mike. And, may Dr. Zollicoffer rest in peace, man. He was a phenomenal man, just as you are. And let's talk a brief bit about medicine, practicing medicine in urban centers, because you have been described as a urban country doctor, right? Country
Mhm.
doctor. You make the house calls, you allow people to call you at midnight. What is it like practicing medicine in an urban environment? What has it been like for you, man? And why do you do it?
I do it, and I don't. The best way to describe it all, because people run that question by me a lot, is that it is my life. I can't separate the two. Medicine is who I am. And so being out here in these urban environment is just spreading the same things I do with people no matter where I'd be. It is about being a person that's kind, a person that opens his doors, a person who practices the art of medicine and not the science of medicine. A healer is an artist, and an artist cannot close people away from his artistry. And so I'm always here. I live and breathe medicine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never away from it. I don't care where I am in the world. My phone is open. People have called me. I've touched base with people. If I'm in Europe, I don't care where I've been. I practice medicine. So being here in Baltimore dealing with lower socioeconomic groups is a challenge in itself, but not a challenge if you go with the passion that I just talked about. My doors are open. There are no barriers here. I don't care if you got anything in your pocket. Everyone is seen. I don't care what age. I have an urgent care center within my office too. So I take care of people of all walks of life. Any call, especially during this pandemic, have come to me from all around this country, people who know what I do and what I've done with COVID over the last 2 years and the things I put in place. So I'm treating people completely and everywhere. It is just a labor
Wow,
of love.
Mike.
It's my life. It's just my life.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Let me tell you about something I discovered as I did my research. And I've known you all my life, but I have never seen anyone. And when you do a Google and they give you the 5 stars, I've never seen anyone with over 100 reviews that had a perfect score rating other than you. You're the only person. I was surprised because you always find someone that has something to say about you that isn't great. You are the only person that I saw when I did a Google search and they had the ratings that you had over 100 people review you and you had a perfect score of 5, man.
My
so
goodness.
so you're a pediatrician, but yet you treat the whole family. You see moms, dads, grandparents, etc.
That's
how,
right.
how does that work out, man? What does your practice look like in that regard?
Just a subset of what you just stated. If grandma out front and needs a flu shot and she's sitting out there, then she comes back and gets one. And I don't ask for one dime for it. I've been having that program, giving out thousands of shots for years. If grandma's sick out front, she comes back and seen. If mother's sitting there and looking like something's wrong with her, then I ask her what's wrong with her, and I take care of her before she walks out the room. This is just what I said. It's a family situation. It's what I do, and I can't see any other way to doing it. This is what a
Wow.
doctor is, a healer of all people. My specialty may be pediatrics, but I've been taking care of folks so long. Like I said, my kids are getting older because I've been doing this 30 years. So I'm saying I'm going from peds to geriatrics now. So I take care of everything. And it's just I can't say anymore. It's just a labor of love, son. Labor of love.
Well, let's get into the real deal for why we're here, man. We are in the midst of a crisis, and I
Right.
think you described yesterday what you have seen the past few days has been compelling. When we thought that we were in the midst of it in 2020, and you, a doctor who's on the ground treating COVID, says that the past few days have been overwhelming and compelling. Then we really need to understand what's happening so that our viewers can continue to live safe and save their lives. But first, what I'd like for you to do, give us so we all have heard of the CDC. I mentioned Dr. Wynn, who used to be with the Baltimore City Health Department. Then she was with Planned Parenthood as the president before she got moved out of there. She's over in DC now, George Washington University, doing whatever she's doing. And Dr. Fauci, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, talk about the CDC relevant to COVID-19 and the education that we've been getting from those folks there, and what your thoughts are, your grade on on the CDC and their doing their job to the public.
Well, I'll just come out. I'll say, as far as I'm concerned, the CDC gets a C at best. I think they are wonderful at the scientific thought process of what we need to do. but their execution, and not all on their own right, because you had a political quagmire with Trump in office that created some miscommunication and some lack of putting information out. And we all remember that sort of craziness. But what I looked at, and here's the catch where I put the CDC, I don't think anyone should be deemed the king. And what you have a man such as myself who has just as much knowledge as a Fauci or Wynn or anyone in the industry of healthcare and epidemiology and public health. We need to be able to think independently. That's why independent doctors need to be around. So when this thing came upon me, I looked to see what is the best way to take care of it. When we first came out, oh, it's just 5 cases. I was telling people, don't worry about it. But when we got 5 on top of 5 and it multiplied to thousands and hundreds of thousands, now millions of people, it became something that we had to think about. What are the people in urban Baltimore? What are we as a society going to do in order to take care of a pandemic? A pandemic is run by 3 factors: economic, emotional, and health. You have to take care of all of them. United States failed in almost every category, CDC included. The reason that's important, because if you kill the people and they can't get out, then there's a problem with the mental health of the people. Pandemics, as we see kids who dealing with the virtual stuff and the mental problems that came with that, that happens to the population. We're mentally stressed. So you have to look at the mental aspect. Economically, when you shut someone down, you cut the livelihood off. As you well know, we've been going through me with my own survival. As you take independent doctors that are not paid from hospital and corporate entities who have to continue to survive, then we have to look out for that. Then you got to do the health aspect. And the health aspect, what do we do to keep ourselves safe and balance it with those 3 factors?
So
Economic.
let's talk about
Oh,
let's talk about that. Let's talk
right.
about the health aspect. Can you
Yeah.
hear
And
me?
so if we go to the health aspect, that's where I came down with thinking my best thing is to keep people masked. All right. I knew this was a respiratory virus. It's not going to be spread by my hand washing or keying off packages or putting a piece of a plastic glass in between me or social distancing. Once we make a decision to wear masks, then that becomes your number one defense mechanism. I don't need anything else. I don't need to confuse my population with anything. So all my patients were asked only one thing: wear a mask. And at
So
100% rate, they stayed with it. One thing. Go right ahead.
so why did we all believe, and maybe it was our my stupidity to think back in May or March when I got my vaccine that I may have been relatively safe from catching COVID. Did I miss a message that was put out there that I would not still be able to get COVID? Maybe that it would allow me to, not be as sick. Was there a message simultaneously put out by the
Yeah, I
CDC?
think, right. I think the CDC initially almost made you believe that the vaccine was your savior, that once you get it, you couldn't catch COVID. And that's far from the truth. When you get the flu vaccine every year, people still get the flu. You just don't get it as bad. You don't get the morbidity and mortality as bad. So that's what you had to stress. So this is like the flu with on steroids. It's exponentially worse. So I don't want to people to get to the misnomer of thought that we're going to call us the flu, but we still have to keep flu mentality there. So the vaccine should never been touted as a thing that will save you from everything. No, it is to keep you from mortality and morbidity. But you can still pass. And now you see that's what everybody talks about. So what we sometimes do when we're talking from a governmental standpoint, whether regional or federal, we go with a thing that I talked to not too long on the show: too much damn information, too much information. You're giving the public much more than they need. I don't even think we need to talk about these variants because they're difficult for you to digest. So we need to talk in real terms and put out real efforts to fight the virus. That's why I continue to advocate to this day, no matter shot or no shot, mask wearing and how you protect your cohort, meaning that place where you go unmasked. How well can you take care of that and continue to flourish and keep everything in some neutral framework and some mentally non-challenging situations?
So, Mike, is it true, Dr. Zollicoffer, is it true that people who contract COVID most of the time contracted within their cohort or their family? That's where
That's
vaccine,
right.
where
Yep.
COVID is contracted. It's
No,
not in the stadiums. It's not in the shopping centers.
That's
Most
right.
people are getting COVID in their own homes. Why?
That's right. I say it over and over. Your family will kill you in a pandemic. You give them too many passes. Too many passes. People remember well when I was on a show maybe about a year ago and would say, "Well, how are we going to do Thanksgiving?" I said, "You go see everybody you want to." Whereas the world was telling you to stay away. I said, "Go," but you have to go with a smart. If you go walk into your home, and my cohort is 3 people, and we walk around unmasked and we feel fairly comfortable with that. When I bring Aunt Harriet over, she can't come in my cohort at the time. This was before even shots, but it still serves purpose right now. You can't come in my cohort. So I put Aunt Harriet in the den, or I put her in the basement. And she is to stay there unless I let her come into my cohort. And when she comes with a mask. So what that does is give you the mental health, the emotional aspect can now be taken care of. You need people to survive. You need to hug and touch people. So we need Aunt Harriet. We need to see our families. I don't know why people stayed away from their families. My mother is 89. I was there with her and we go see her, but we wore a mask until this day. She hadn't seen my face without a mask, and I don't know how long. She probably thinks now I'm a whole new person. So I mean, that's how much I push the mask. So when we bring people into those situations, protect your cohort. The first person you protect in your cohort is yourself. So if my boyfriend done gone out into Tahiti for a month, when he comes back, I don't talk to him again for 7 days without a mask, because I know the joker telling me he wore a mask the whole time, but he probably did not. You cannot trust your family or anyone to break your cohort, and the first cohort you got to look at is self. Cover yourself, and you can cover yourself 100%, no matter what. You can have everybody unmasked, but if you put on your mask, the chance of catching COVID is nominal to zero.
So, Mike, there's a question in the chat. There's a few questions in the chat for you. So this question is compelling. So you're saying that if we just wear the mask, we wouldn't get COVID. If so, then these young people who haven't received the vaccine were correct in saying they don't need the shot. Because right now, folks continue to get the virus even after getting both shots and boosted. So,
Right.
so when we talk about vaccine hesitancy, right, and particularly with the young people, Generation Z, millenniums, who say that they don't want to get the shot, are you saying it's okay for them not to get the shot as long as they wear a mask? What are you saying?
Well, I wouldn't put that as a public health statement. I think everyone should get the shot. As you showed the video when I came on, I think the shot is your number one thing to stop morbidity and mortality, but not spread. As I said on the thing, when we get to herd immunity, you're nowhere close to herd immunity. So you
What
can
is herd
never.
immunity? What is herd
Herd
immunity?
immunity is
Because many
getting a subset of people at a large enough volume that you basically stop the spread of the virus. All right? That's at some number. If people can say 90%, 80%, nobody really knows, but it's at some magical place when a significant part of people have been infected or inoculated with a vaccine that stops spread. You stop spreading measles, you stop spreading many of the things that we have out there. We have the school age shots. So that's what herd immunity. It gives you that protection, either naturally because of disease process, as we did back in 1918 with the flu epidemic, where the naturalness, no vaccine was ever produced. So worldwide, hundreds of millions of people died until we got to that critical stage that the infection rate stopped because we had a herd immunity. So that's what you're talking about. Herd immunity protects folk. But right now, you don't have that. So if you don't want to do a shot, that's your business. I think you'll be crazy not to get a shot. I think everyone should get a shot. And if it's 5 shots, 6 shots, keep getting them until we keep ourselves protected. I don't care how many shots they are. I don't like to use the word booster. I think it's just going to be shot after shot after shot, because you're going to see this thing take a while to get there. And no one, and you talk about non-vaxxers, what happens with the non-vaxxer, many of them are non-maskers. You got to have it one way or the other. If you're not going to get your vaccination, that is not going to stop spread, at least try the best your help to get a mask to at least protect yourself and those around you. Those are the key ingredients. That's why I continue to push masks. Masks by far are not open to variation. They're not open to variants, Omicron, Delta, whatever you want to bring me. A mask does not need to change its filtration, its anything. It is a maximum defense. And it takes care of individual spread and helps you protect your cohort. And as I told you, the number one cohort is yourself.
So let's talk about vaccine hesitancy and vaccines. Dr. Fauci said And let me find the quote of what Dr. Fauci said about the vaccine. The vaccine you're going to take was developed by an African American woman. This is what he said. And that is just a fact that Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Fauci said, right? He
Mm-hmm.
said that, and that black woman, okay, Dr. Corbett, she went to UMBC as well, right? And
Right.
then went on to
Mm-hmm.
Harvard Medical. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we talk about hesitancy and we talk about Henrietta Lacks and we talk about, the Tuskegee Airmen and some of the things that were done historically to blacks and testing, etc., that was one thing. But you said in that 30-second video that the vaccine was safe. Explain to our viewers why you endorsed a vaccine that you deemed safe, that people felt had only been researched for a very short period of time, or was it only research for a very short period of time?
No, the protocol to bring the vaccine to market and to bring it into general population of use went through every step that it normally would. The window was just shortened. The FDA is what I tell everybody. You sort of move in life as a brainwashing. If I've been running 6 years to 10 years to bring something to market, you think that's okay, but you have no knowledge of why it took 6 to 10 years. FDA, being a very conservative situation, has always fought the European brothers, the European systems, who bring things to market much more, with not much early, without all the scrutiny. So you were set in this picture. What people said to you, you didn't know what went on for the 6 years. So then saying it's now 2 years or 1 year or 6 months, oh, that's too fast. You don't know what too fast is. Like I said, too much information. The general person does not know one thing about a shot. I did a show not too long ago. They said, well, what's the dose? I said, I'm not going to tell you the dose. You don't know the dose of the MMR. You don't know the dose of any shot you got. So why are you asking the dose? It means nothing to you. You're not all of a sudden a vaccine expert. So well, we have to put ourselves into a mindset of understanding. There's a trust there. I don't think anyone would go out to try to harm anywhere as a Tuskegee situation. I think those times are gone. You have to be cautious for economic reasons, but not necessarily from the science. And I think we brought something without cutting any of the situation. In fact, the numbers that you had on some of the testing were greater than would done if you went 6 to 10 years. So this was a safe shot. I tell people it's one of the safest shots ever produced. It's a very safe shot. Of the side effects
And
you
the
heard,
fact
hmm?
and the fact that a black woman, to me, should
Right,
establish a bit of credibility with, particularly within the black community, that maybe it was done in a way that was expedient but was still careful, didn't
right.
seem to dissuade those in our community as
Right.
well. Do you think
Yeah,
that that should have been some sort of leverage or legitimacy of this vaccine, the fact in our community
right.
that it was developed by someone that looked like us? And then you had mentioned a gentleman, right, with Moderna,
Mhm.
I think, that also developed the vaccine with Moderna, a black
No,
male.
switch it around. So she was the Moderna head. I said that's the black vaccine, but Pfizer vaccine was not run by her. So you didn't have a black person doing that. The research that was the mRNA is the basics and the model for the development of that particular vaccine had been around for years. It's a husband and wife team that had done that back in the late 80s, early 90s. So this is not new technology. Someone just brought it and used it in a different fashion and thought it'd be a good way to expedite getting a shot and be a wonderful model that you can then change very easily because it's all basically a software-based viral technology, whereas J&J was much more of your old traditional based vaccination creation and how we brought it about. So each one of them had a different pattern. So the shot I always use to tout is the one she brought was Moderna. The other were brought back through the typical corporate factors, were mostly generated by most people. Could have had blacks on the team. I don't even know the names of people who did Pfizer. Again, here we go, too much information. I don't ever know who did the MMR or nothing else, to be honest with you, when it goes back to real development.
So, what would you say to the anti-vaxxers out there, particularly in our community, that feel as though if they get the shot, it's going to turn them in some sort of zombie, whatever? What would you say to vaccine anti-vaxxers in our community? First of all, to encourage them to get the shot, and second of all, to refute what they're saying that the shot potentially does to you or harm that it does.
There's one, you take this internet conspiracy and research, there's no basis to that. That's been going on from forever, from every shot we've done, from the school age shots around. You got anti-vaxxers. In fact, I'm one of the few doctors that protects an anti-vaxxer. It's your right not to get the shot. Do what you want to. I think you're foolish to not do your shot. I think you're playing and walking on very dangerous ground. I mean, you're walking on a very shaky bridge that could break at any time. Why put yourself into that situation? I would not be on. And you see me, the one you got was just one of the commercials. I did commercials. I became the black voice for the state of Maryland to get people immunized. When they saw my face, people called me on the phone, Doc, if you said it, I'm getting it. So you got to sometimes, as you talk about the development of the shot, you also got to get that doc who's respected, the doc who has that communication, the doc who people know you can trust. That face has to get that in order to change that ignorance. So I would want everybody to get a shot. And I'm going to tell you a quick story because I want this young lady's name to stay etched in everybody's mind. It's called Nicole Prescott, patient of mine, who didn't want to do the shot and soon acquired COVID. And got to a place where she would call me all the time, but this time she didn't, and got called into the hospital system and needed to be intubated and needed to be on a vent, but refused to do it. And several days after that, these calls that she would give me while she was in the hospital stopped. And then I looked for her. And of course, the sadness that I thought had occurred. She died. So I wanted to see her mother, who was in the same house with her. I said, well, let me call mom. But mom couldn't be found because she was 2 doors down in the same hospital. And 2 days after her daughter died, she died. Needless death. No shot. No shot. And that was my friend, my patient. But many of my patients become much more than patients. I don't even look at people as patients. We're all in this world together. So when an anti-vaxxer comes to me, I tell them that story. Don't want her ever to be forgotten. You don't have to die from this. Get the shot, stop the end product of death and high morbidities, but also be prudent enough to understand until we get enough vaccines out there and enough people immunized, don't ever take that mask off. And when you take it off, do it with prudence. And that's what I teach. I even give out KN95s for people when they've been invaded within their household. When your cohort has been hit, I educate you much more than what the health department's doing. They're tracking. I'm educating you on how do you now walk through the pandemic and keep your sanity. It is so great to keep our mental capabilities to where we can manage ourselves. And that's what we've lost as a nation. We have not thought about this and given those inner city docs as myself and give us the voice that we can to stand up for people, no matter what, any walk of life. I take your lower socioeconomic groups, but this is for any walk of life. Place yourself and protect your cohort. If I'm walking into the mall and I'm just walking through a guy with a vaccine, hell, I really don't care if you go through without a mask. But if I see a long line and I'm going to be exposed to people for a certain period of time, I'm pulling that mask up. I'm pulling that mask.
Such as we saw in the long lines at Thanksgiving and Christmas of people waiting to get tested for vaccines, right, without masks on. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But we're at the halfway point. You're listening to and watching 60 Minutes in Black USA. And I'd like to talk about our lineup. Monday through Fridays, Black USA is a national news network that looks to show the commonality of communities across this country. You know, we have shows in Oakland, New York, Baltimore, Florida, soon to be Atlanta, Indianapolis. And we just want people to see that our communities have some of the same issues and compare some notes. Monday through Friday, we have Black USA News from 10 to 11. On Monday evening, Shared Spaces. On Tuesday, the Donnie Glover Show with our founder, Donnie Glover. On Thursday, Black Business Roundtable with Art Blackshear out there in Oakland, California. On Fridays, Black USA Crypto News. And on Saturday, The Blackout, as well as Beyond the Pen, a new show at 12 noon on Saturdays. And of course, yours truly every Sunday at 6 p.m. with Black USA, 60 Minutes in Black USA. Again, we're talking to Dr. Michael Zollicoffer. We're talking about COVID-19 and this pandemic. And Dr. Zollicoffer, before we transition into the economics of COVID, you know, you had mentioned that the past few days have been epic in terms of the pandemic and the number of people you served. And I think that you said in the course of serving a multitude of people, and you're a pediatrician with the ability to treat adults as well, because you treat the entire family, that you have not lost one person, knock on wood for
I'm
you,
going to knock on my
during the
5
course
years
of
out
COVID.
to
Yeah,
my
we're going to
head.
knock on some wood, right? That you have not
You better
lost
believe
one
it.
person to COVID. Talk about the past few days, talk about your treatment, and talk about why you haven't lost anyone to COVID based on people listening to you.
And I'll throw this out there because I want the world to hear this. Is one, the step with mass, because my people come and be encouraged when they get here. Let's stay with that first. When I let you come in and you don't have to wait in your car. When you come in and sit next to everybody, sick, well, indifferent, everybody's in the same vein. As I've always done, never changed. You have a mask. So 2 years of data. Maybe it's anecdotal, it's not controlled studies, but you got 2 years of everybody sitting on top of each other and no one's sick. No one's died. Think about what I'm saying. One person said the other day, which dramatizes this, is that they said, you know what? He came in the room and he hugged us. I didn't do this bumping no elbows. I have a mask on. You're not going to give me COVID from a hug. You got a mask, I got a mask. The chance of spreading is almost infinitesimal. But the chance of healing comes from love and compassion. That's the art of medicine. So I can't do it anyway. So my folks come without the mental burden. If you ain't got a dollar, I'm still seeing you. Think of what I'm saying. The mental burden has gone away. So then when we do get those people who come in sick, and this last few weeks is something, from the testing, which we're going to talk about later, but just the actual person, the Omicron, no matter how rapidly spread around this world, is a very quick hitter. It gets you sick quick, may not have the mortality morbidity, but it gets you quick. Folks were in here Monday, like I said, 70 people. That's all. Most people walked off the job. I can't walk off what I love and who I can help. So when those people come with a pre-looking, a little fever, nothing bad, have no respiratory, they do the pulse ox in the 90s, look like they need no oxygen. Then I put them on what I call my pre-cocktail, prednisone and a Z-Pack. The number one factor that helps you is the prednisone. This is an inflammatory situation that attacks your lungs. If I can keep that reaction down, is my thought, then I should help change you from getting worse. To me, it's been proven. They do well. When they get to the point of having a respiratory problem, then I add an inhaler. But my brethren out there, and I'm going to say to the doctors, I have a lecture called MD Mighty Dumb, because we go with might, but we do mighty dumb things. And one of them is you don't teach people how to use an inhaler at about a 99% rate. You hand the prescription out. Person doesn't know what to do. I got people spraying the thing in the air. It's supposed to get in your lungs. You up here breathing out air, nothing coordinated. But when I add that inhaler, it's taught. I teach my students every day, my nurse practitioner students, inhaler taught. You cannot write medicines without teaching. If a person's 40 but can't swallow a pill, then he needs to have liquid. You have to find out what you're dealing with. So I put on that two-phase profile, the pre-thing, steroid, antibiotic, then steroid, antibiotic, and inhaler. And that's where we had success with these people. I've had a lady who fell out in here with an 81 pulse ox, had no money, was scared to go anywhere, laying on the floor. She would be hospitalized and possibly put into anywhere in any other place. I picked her up, put her on the inhaler, taught and did it before she walked out here, which she stabilized in the 90s, and she's still alive today. That's what we've done. And that's what I've put down and seen, whether it's controlled or not, but we've done enough now. The numbers are gigantic. And I see this as one of the best ways to go about confronting this illness from every degree of its severities.
So Mike, Mike, so the numbers are compelling and overwhelming right now. Is it because of testing or is it because of the spread? And how does someone know whether they have a cold, the flu, or COVID?
There's no way to do but other to get in and be looked at. I think this goes back to what you do every day in medicine, period. I mean, I'm gonna walk in, does a person have a cold or pneumonia? Does a person have a cold or are they wheezing? So these come from people seeing providers and people who have some clinical acumen to do that. Now, many of us sit home and want to make these decisions. I think you're unwise to sit home with 104 fever, aches and pains in the middle of a pandemic and prescribe to the thought process that I just got a common cold. It may be, but in this pandemic, well, now in the last week, 80% of my checks are positive. The chance you got COVID is astronomically high. And I think you
So
need
the
to look at
chances
it.
that the chances if my throat is scratchy and I'm
Right.
coughing, the chances are right now that I have COVID. That's what you're
That's right.
saying, and
And I've
people should
looked at those.
assume that.
That's right. And those symptoms that you're talking to me, if I check you, it is amazingly incredible with the percentage. They usually, even with minor symptoms that you just stated, are positive for COVID. It is incredible. Like I said, unreal. Never seen anything like it in 36 years of medicine. The last
And the
week,
fact that
told
and the
me up.
fact that I got COVID, having had a vaccine and a booster, is because I was unmasked. Is that what you're saying? Is that a fair statement?
You better believe it. And you got your unmasked and you were exposed to your family. When you go home, I ask everybody, what'd you do? We don't have a mask on. But he walked in with 104 feet. What'd you do then? We kept a mask off. Then I'm just saying this so people get affected. Then we're acting from an idiot thought process. You're in a pandemic. He's got 104 fever and you still unmasked. Well, I got a shot. The shot protects you again. Morbidity, mortality does not stop you from getting COVID.
And that's information that our community needs to be aware
Oh,
of, is
yes.
that the fact
Yes.
that you have
Yes.
a shot and a booster does not mean that you're immune totally from getting COVID. It just
Yes.
keeps the morbidity and the mortality down, but you need to keep your butt masked, right?
Oh,
You need to
yes.
keep your
And,
butt masked
right.
at all times.
And we as a nation would have done better to first fill every household with KN95s before the vaccine.
Mike, let's
If you
spin
would have
for a
done that, you'd have
minute.
saved tremendous amounts of lives. You would have saved tremendous amounts of lives.
Let's spin for a quick minute, and we're going to circle back to that if we have
Right,
time.
right,
So
right,
let's do a comparison of the U.S. that
right,
has 327 million, 330 million, and then
right.
let's take a continent or another continent like Africa that has what, almost 1.3 billion people, right? The
Across
United
all countries,
States
right.
and yeah, the continent,
Right,
Africa,
right,
right? Not
right.
Kenya, Uganda. We're
No,
talking
right, right,
Africa. The continent has
right,
1.3 billion people.
right,
The U.S. has 300 million, or a bit over that, right?
right, right.
The U.S. as of December had 800,000 plus deaths
Mm-hmm.
due to COVID.
Right.
The continent of Africa had 221,000 people die as a result, or almost 4 times as many with the modern medicine and practices that we have over there. What's the explanation for that?
That's just capitalism. I'll be honest with
Capitalism.
you. That's right.
What
We
does
get in our
that
own
mean,
way.
capitalism?
Capitalism means the cost of medicine in this country is too high for the outcomes that you get. The cost getting away so much it blinds the eye. So you can make a vaccine, and what I say earlier, you should have pushed the mask. Mask was cheaper and much better at stopping disease spread. And once you put the mask on, we need no social distance. We need no plexiglass in front of us. And what Africa did, and when you and I talk somewhat, let's take a country. Let's say South, whatever, somewhere in there, Kenya, that you brought up. One, the viral load in Africa is different. But however, they have no vaccine of any significance. But they mandated masks. So now the simplest, cheapest thing, because I economically cannot do what the US can do, saves you at a greater weight because the US hasn't got anywhere close to herd immunity to protect the population from the vaccine itself. So it needs a mask. Africa had the mask and they wore it. That stopped disease spread. Put another example for you. NBA, last year, what did they work from? A bubble. Once you walked in the bubble, you never came out. You came in the bubble free. I don't think they had one case because I rid the bubble of virin. Listen to what we're talking about. You can do the same bubble with a mask. Let the shot be secondary. Push the mask, CDC. Push the mask, United States of America. Get people on board. Now, if you don't wear a mask, just like you don't do a shot, I cannot deal with your ignorance. But if I want to protect myself, I will walk through a sea of COVID with my mask on. And I will come out.
Hold on a second. Hold on a
Yes.
second.
Go on,
So
baby. Flow with it.
19 billion in
Right.
research alone. 19 billion is what
Right.
the US
Right.
spent in research alone for a vaccine. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it was called Operation Warp Speed, right? And
Yeah.
then we talk about 9 billion to Moderna and whatever
Right.
to Johnson, whatever to Pfizer to
Right.
supply vaccines, right?
Right. Right.
And we have more deaths than a continent that was given a 500,000 doses.
Right.
And you're
You-
saying that each death here in this country equated to a certain more amount of money
That's
for
right.
those that were vested in what we call the vaccine resources,
Right.
be it or the pandemic or corona or virus resources, be it masks, be it hand sanitizers, be it the vaccine itself. So it became commercialized to a point where it caused more deaths times four times than it is in a
Yeah.
country that doesn't have anywhere near the vaccines we
Right.
have.
This is the same thing that goes on every day. The United States spends more money than any of the top GDP countries for healthcare and has poor outcomes. That's what you just stated. You just spend a bunch of more money and have a poor outcome. Your poor outcome because you didn't think. You're so much caught in the economics. And I don't mean that somebody sat back in a room and had a conspiracy going on. Let's make some money on this, make some money. But when you are born into a situation where healthcare is a profit-making business, you like sick people. You don't think like that, but they darn sure get you a dollar. If everybody out there standing in line for those tests, which they don't need in the way we're doing, that's too much testing. But it's money. Now you got home testing. Now everybody before they get out the door want to test. Test is the worst thing you can do with these tests because the test gives you a false sense of security. You test yourself on Monday, you're COVID positive, but the test is negative. Then you run to your grandma and hang her, she's 89, but on Wednesday you COVID positive. You just killed your grandmother. You are messing the world up, the United States of America, because of all your testing, because of your inherent brilliance that is not that bright. You need to look back to simplistic things as I did in this office and have been proven over 2 years. Put your mask on and we can function. We can go out to the store. We can go in. I'm not even worried about quarantining. My quarantine is putting the KN95. I'm not spreading anything because you got to look at what we do. And now you've seen it. From 14 days when this thing stopped, now you're talking about 5 days or 5 days of a mask. Where'd that come from? Think of what I'm saying to you. You're changing this thing, and it's not always from design of scientific know-how. You get what I'm saying? We've been bamboozled in life because capitalism has done that since Reaganomics changed in 1980. You got us as a country letting rich corporate America do what it does to everybody while 90% of us sits in the cell of doom. So this is a deeper product when you talk about what we got to do with the pandemic, because this is a socialization project that's been going on since whenever. Now, 40 years of the cascade of Reaganomics has been the most devastating economic policy that ever hit the United States of America. You let rich people go for nothing. And that's
So are
what
you
caused us to have a
saying
health problem.
So are you saying that capitalization and the capitalistic system here in the US has been detrimental to us during this pandemic and continues
Yes,
to be?
yes, yes, because you forgot the African know-how. I don't have anything but poverty. So I have to make do. And I may do with a mass and have a better outcome than the United States of America, the most powerful country on the planet, and supposed to be the most medical genius country on the planet. All bamboozlement. It's not
What do you
true.
say to your fellow physicians, right? Who are in the hospitals, who are practicing such as you, maybe not in the sense of you, because you're on the ground seeing it with people that don't have the resources or the ability, particularly with high-end medicine to pay. What is their responsibility to us as yours is from an educational perspective, and are they doing it?
Well, we want to look at it, and let's put it in. The first responders, doctors, nurses, everybody have got to give a clap to and congratulations. This is an overwhelming challenge. So there's no negative that I'm saying to anyone. You're doing what protocols and things that are put in place. But what I will say, pandemic notwithstanding, take us out the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, you are caught into the medical system and you become a pawn in it. How many do what I do? How many bring you in without dollars, with anything? Money is irrelevant in medicine. So who goes out and becomes the maverick and the vanguard to challenge the powers that be? Very few of us. You go to medical school, you think you got a big bill, I got to have a big paycheck. Only America are doctors paid like kings and queens. The rest of the world take it as a public health concern and dare to provide care for people. Dollar flow opportunity. You're going to be fine. You're going to be better than the average bear. But we don't hate to fortify ourselves with dollars and cents and this and that, creating this great conglomeration that has become a behemoth that is out of control. The Affordable Act gave you access to a very bad apple, but the apple is still rotten, and so is our society. So I would say to my brethren, be the people they are. You're the saviors. You are the first line response. You do a great job. Yo, let me give you a great applause again. But one day, please sit back and think of what you nurture. You have to be a part of changing this rotten system, because we cannot keep going spending this astronomical amount of money and going nowhere fast.
So are you a danger? Are you a danger? Are you a danger to medicine and medical community as it exists today with the information that you tell us and educate us to? Are you a danger to them?
I'm a danger, yes, to the system, but I'm a hero for the people. You hear what I'm saying? If you change to what I do, then you see a new system that gives you hope. The people need hope, not the corporate entity of medicine. It needs to be destroyed. The way we do this is ridiculous and out of control. And it's going to take a maverick. It's going to take a person who stands forth like I do every day. Take care of students, get them into medical school. Take care of folk who underserved situations, who want to be able to see somebody have not a dime in their pocket. And I bring you here. Take nurse practitioners and challenge them and teach them out of the confines and procedures that they are taught in, to learn how to care above your profit, to learn how to give above your anything that you can see. The heart and art of medicine is what you need. Like I told you, those people said, I gave them a hug. My hug gave them more chance to heal themselves than you leaving people in isolation in hospitals as this pandemic is done. All of it should have been challenged. We have to change the model.
So, Dr. Zollicoffer, we're down to the last 13 minutes. Compelling conversation with you today. We were sheltering in place, or essentially not able to go anywhere for a number of months. Matter of fact, over a year. And then, according to you, you're telling us that we're sitting in a cohort at home that's causing us 90% to get COVID, and they're telling us to stay in the house and not go anywhere. And our entire economy was shut down.
Yes. Needlessly.
Was that the right thing? Needlessly.
No.
So these businesses that were lost, and the fact that we weren't able to go to restaurants and the economy was shut down, what would you have done?
Well, let me show you. Let me show you. If I was in a restaurant, people know I've been saying it for years. Let me show you something. Put my little mask on. Let me look there. Gonna eat my burger. Boom. Mask go back up. Chew that burger. Pull it down. Give me another bite. Put it back up. No exposure. This is how you guys want to eat in a restaurant. I ain't seen your brother JoJo for the last 2 years or 2 weeks, and now you sitting around with him for the next hour, shooting the breeze, drinking some beers with your face like this. That is a weakness and could have been avoided if we thought. This is the same way you do in your household. This is why actually kids should go back to school and not be virtual, because when they're home virtual, they don't have a mask on. You're going to have more illness at home than if you go back to school. You need
but
to
you
go
just believe that you
mask.
believe they should have a mask mandate for kids.
Yes.
Right? You believe that?
Yes. No question. You can't do it any other way. They need to have a mask until the numbers get to a point that they're digestible like you would then move to like we do flu every year, which you don't even talk about. When 35,000 to 100,000 people, depending on any given year, die from the flu. You didn't know that because too much information. You don't know anything about what you do in the general public. That's why you need people such as I to protect you and to give you some hope and some dreams, both economic and mental health wise, to conquer this pandemic. Yes, we need some people who are on the board with the CDC who come from a situation of day-to-day community management. And let's talk about it, even because we call us Black USA. Well, most Black doctors aren't independent. They're controlled by white doctors or white entities. So the Black face may be there, but it has no power, has no control. You need to keep people independent as I am, who are not beholden to hospitals and corporate entities. That's why I have the data I have. That's why I've been able to utilize it.
Compelling. Interesting you say that. Before you and I talked, I said, well, you're showing yourself. I invited a few, Black doctors that I know, to be part of a forum. And most of them, be it with LifeBridge, et cetera, were not able to do this because they are controlled from giving information. What good is that doing me for the community? I mean, is that
No,
real?
that's real. That's real. But that's all of us. We're controlled by the bamboozlement of the economic policy of the United States that puts you in a devastating hole every day you try to survive. 300 and some plus Maryland deaths in this city every year from the despair and the loss of compassion and human existence of its citizens. Everybody's at the bottom of the crab box trying to get out, but they're trying to pull everybody back down because you're scared and you're fearful of anybody escaping. This is something that we as a society and legislatures and municipal people, mayors, et cetera, have to retrain their thought process. You regurgitate the same vomit that's been out there forever. It's time to stop doing the same old, same old. Stop being bamboozled and had and hoodwinked. You got to get out here and rethink. You have models out there that you can look at to help save us from social genocide to health genocide. We have to bring this model together to start tearing about and not being worried about whose toes we stepping on. Today, I've stepped on a lot of toes.
So interesting you say that. Interesting you say that. We talked about at the top of the hour the fact that this show, fits a multitude of urban centers around the country: Memphis, Birmingham, Detroit, Chicago, New Orleans, Oakland, Baltimore, DC, and we all have correlation of urban economic issues. And then all of a sudden you handle the pandemic. You don't Black Lives Matter. They deal with high murder rates in these cities.
Right.
What about the leaders in our Black urban center, many of them that look like we do, but yet we don't seem to be going anywhere? What's going on with them, man? And particularly with this pandemic, how are they managing? We gave Dr. Fauci a grade of C. What do you say about our leaders in the urban center? What's their grade during this pandemic?
Let me say, I gave the CDC a grade of C. Fauci's, I give a little above that, but he's a whole different model because he just head of NIH. The whole pandemic experience, I think, is a C or less for the United States of America. I think we just said it already. Our Black leaders, who is a leader? There are no MLKs anymore. There are no people who put their lives on the line anymore in the same way. There's no one who embodies and looks at the way to escape from the total economic genocide of Reaganomics. When we put in here, we're regurgitating rules from the CDC. Every city mandates CDC or their health department. The health department is directly connected to CDC, so no one has walked out with maverick behavior but me. And I say that, and I don't say that with ego or malice to anyone. I've been given that opportunity. I think others would too if they're not controlled by the economic corporate entity. We have to change the way we do business. And we cannot continue to elect people, even though it's going to be hard because they don't have the knowledge base. But they need to arm themselves with people such as myself, or people who come out and give you an alternative viewpoint. And not only just because it's an alternative viewpoint, it's workable. I have conquered in this office the pandemic. Think about it. If we had listened to some of the things I stated, we would not be in the situation we are. If you want to be honest that you have caught in the economic quagmire from the United States of America that makes you almost impotent in the way you administer what we've done, then you need to bring it up and talk about it and stop worrying about who's got egg on their face. I'm not against any Fauci. Fauci does a wonderful gentleman, means well, everybody. I think the CDC means well. But you cannot let political ignorance, especially when Trump was in office. How do you listen to a fool? Let's not give him any credit. He started this thing with the most foolish thought process in the world, from thinking you're going to put Clorox in his damn veins. Something is wrong with you, people, to lead or even thinking to be led by a fool. We need to find people with intellect and compassion that help change the model to empower our people to move somewhere, because when I economically get you empowered, I help your health. Your health cannot be helped when you're sitting in an economic quagmire. What you see is 300 murders every day in Baltimore City and across any urban center around here. It is time to put creativity into your life, and the creativity comes from a heart, and it comes from a soul, and it comes from compassion, and it comes from people who care.
So back again, Dr. Zollicoffer, because you're going to give us a grade, right? So when you look at our urban centers, and you can pick an example if you want, what are our leaders in the Black community? What is their grade during this pandemic?
Oh,
let's take Baltimore as an example. Let's look at Baltimore and the leadership and the political apparatus of Black leadership in a city like Baltimore, which is no different than the other communities that we met.
That's right. That's right.
How are our people being led to offset what you said, the political nature of medical situations for many of the underserved community? Did it happen?
No, you regurgitated typical CDC mentality. You let your restaurants go into chaos, suffer. I'm just using them as an example but it's more than that, because people don't even think about the independent Black doctors such as myself. But we've let all of it go straight to hell because you regurgitate without a novel or maverick behavior. If you're going to take a leadership position, think out the proverbial box. Don't keep doing the same old, same old. We need to get leadership that looks at what do we need to do to fix this economic quagmire. If I've got students, 41% of high school students with a 1.0 GPA, I have a problem. If I walk into a high school now, it's chaos. So therefore, I then don't have discipline for my people. So the health problem is directly tied to your social problem. You don't look at it that way because you regurgitate senatorial, mayor, delegate, legislative, Congress, representative, whatever you want to put out there. You start looking for self, and you're not there for the people. And we have to fix the social climate to fix the healthcare climate. They are one in each other. You cannot fix healthcare with a sick population who cannot find its way.
Wow. You know, Mike, we're down to the last 3 minutes, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes to sum up everything. And, you know, if you can't say it enough and enough and enough, I know what you're going to tell people in order to stay safe and not be a moral or mortality of this pandemic. But you are the classic example of unbossed and unbought. You know what I'm saying? Because if you work for the Light Bridge and the Kaisers and, you know, the other medical systems, Medicare, whatever, you would not be able to give us what it is that we're getting today, right?
Right. I would say it'd be very hard. Now, knowing me, I probably would still do it, but you can't do it, and it's not that you don't want to, but your mind is controlled. You see, when I get that paycheck, I gotta see how far can I stretch what I need to do. The blackface has to come with the blackface with power, and not with from the entity of white controlled behind it. Even our federally mandated health centers that perpetuate us for years, the whole model is broken. We have not changed the health of African Americans anywhere. Yes, we provide care, and it's wonderful to have our blackface. I don't want to side or downplay anybody's role. We are health providers, and they play an excellent role, but they are part of the bamboozlement. You have to get someone who can champion changing the system and bringing us all along. But it's going to be a major undertaking.
1 minute, Mike. Tell our viewers finally how they keep safe so that they see our show in 6 months and they don't find themselves a part of the mortality rate that is skyrocketing in this country as a result of the economic aspect of medicine. Right? Tell them how to stay safe again, Mike.
I'm going to tell you right now, protect your cohort. Your first cohort is you. When you walk into danger, place a mask on. Don't let your shot be your first defense. First defense is a mask. And when it's so dangerous, invest in the KN95 to give you the best defense. But let me tell you, any mask that you wear gives you protection. I proved that for 2 years in this office. But I don't want you to leave here. And I'm going to say this because I'm dealing with you every day. People call me from all over. I got calls right now. I got to go take up when I get off of here. That I'm trying to keep you alive. What are you doing to help me? Now, part of it is because no one taught you. But I'm going to teach you now. Wear your mask, protect your cohort, and you shall live. And we'll
You
make it
heard
through
it
this
from
day.
Mike Zollicoffer, Dr. Zollicoffer. Thank you all very much for listening. Wear your mask, stay alive, protect yourself, protect your cohort, and you're your number one cohort. 60
That's
Minutes
right.
in Black USA. You all have a great week.
Thank you, man.